What if love wasn't about flowers and chocolates? What if it was about something far stranger, something that would make your stomach churn or your eyebrows rise? From the 11th to the 15th century, medieval lovers exchanged tokens of affection that defied modern sensibilities and often ventured into the truly bizarre. Number 10. A pet badger, tamed to fetch specific objects. In the early 13th century, across the damp, moss-laden lands of central France, a particular kind of affection bloomed between Lord Alaric of Montaigne and Lady Isabeau of Valois. Alaric was a man of the earth, preferring the hunt and the shadowed forests to the refined tapestries of courtly life. Isabeau, though born to nobility, shared his wild spirit, often slipping away from her chaperones to join him on his less conventional forays into nature. Their bond was deep-rooted, not in grand declarations, but in a shared understanding of the untamed world. When the time came for Alaric to present Isabeau with a gift that would truly encapsulate his feelings, he bypassed the usual jewels and fine silks. He knew Isabeau prized cunning and resourcefulness above all else, and so he sought a creature that embodied these very traits in an unexpected form. Alaric spent weeks in the dense woodlands surrounding his keep, not hunting deer or boar, but observing the hidden lives of the forest's smaller, more elusive inhabitants. His gaze fell upon a badger, a creature often misunderstood and feared by the common folk, seen as a pest or a symbol of obstinacy. Yet, Alaric saw something else, a creature of formidable strength, incredible digging prowess, and an intelligent, if sometimes grumpy, disposition. He resolved to tame one, not as a mere pet, but as a living, breathing testament to Isabeau's unique qualities and his own dedication. His squires and huntsmen thought him mad, scoffing at the idea of bringing such a creature into a lady's chambers. "A badger, my lord?" one young man dared to ask. "Surely a falcon would be more fitting for Lady Isabeau's grace." Alaric merely smiled, a glint in his eye that suggested he knew something they did not. He captured a young badger, not an easy feat, requiring patience and a deep understanding of its habits. He spent days, then weeks in the solitude of a secluded stable, coaxing the creature, feeding it by hand and slowly, painstakingly familiarizing it with human presence. Badger, initially wary and prone to biting, gradually began to respond to his voice, its sharp claws learning to differentiate between its master's hand and a threatening twig. The true genius of Alaric's gift lay not just in taming the badger, but in training it for a specific, intimate purpose. He taught the badger to recognize and retrieve a particular small, scented pouch, which contained a personal memento. Pouch, often tucked away in a hidden nook within Alaric's own chambers, or secreted within a heavy oak chest, would be sought out by the badger upon command. Historical accounts from the region suggest that this training involved placing the pouch in increasingly difficult-to-reach places, encouraging the badger's natural digging and sniffing instincts. When Alaric finally presented the badger to Isabeau, it was not in a grand ceremony, but in a quiet, secluded garden within her family's castle walls. The badger, surprisingly calm, sat by Alaric's feet, its dark eyes blinking in the sunlight. Isabeau, expecting a horse or a piece of jewelry, looked at the creature with a mixture of confusion and fascination. Alaric then explained its unique talent. He placed a small embroidered linen pouch, one he had gifted her previously, beneath a large stone a short distance away. With a quiet command, "Fetch, little one," the badger lumbered forward, sniffing the air, and with surprising agility nudged the stone aside with its powerful snout and retrieved the pouch, bringing it gently to Isabeau's feet. The strangeness of this gift was multifaceted. Firstly, a badger was simply not a conventional pet for a high-born lady. They were wild, often smelly, and certainly not cuddly in the way a small dog or a tamed squirrel might be. Chroniclers of the era often focused on the elegance and refinement of noble life, and a badger did not fit neatly into such descriptions. Secondly, the specific training to fetch a hidden personal item spoke to a level of intimacy and trust that bordered on the eccentric. It implied a secret language between the lovers, a covert means of communication or retrieval of personal effects that bypassed the usual courtly channels. It was a gift that was both practical in its peculiar way and deeply symbolic of Alaric's perception of Isabeau. Clever, resourceful, and capable of uncovering hidden truths, this badger became a unique companion for Isabeau, a creature of the wild world she loved, and a constant living reminder of Alaric's singular devotion. Records from the Valois family indicate that the badger named Diggory by Isabeau lived a surprisingly long life within the castle, often causing amusement and bewilderment among visitors. Number 9. A ring made from a meteorite fragment. In the mid-14th century, during the tumultuous period of the Hundred Years' War, the world felt uncertain, prone to sudden and inexplicable events. Sir Gareth of Wiltshire, a knight known for his bravery in skirmishes and his quiet contemplation during periods of peace, found himself captivated by Lady Isolde of Cornwall. Isolde was not merely beautiful. She possessed a keen intellect and an unusual fascination with the cosmos, often spending evenings gazing at the stars from the castle battlements long before the advent of telescopes. Gareth, wanting to express a love that transcended the earthly conflicts and fleeting glories, sought a gift that would speak to her celestial curiosity and his own profound devotion. He desired something unique, something literally out of this world, a token as enduring and mysterious as the night sky itself. It was during a journey through the desolate, windswept moors of the West Country that Gareth's quest took an unexpected turn. A brilliant meteor, a falling star as the common folk called them, streaked across the night sky and reportedly impacted a remote, boggy field not far from his path. Superstition held that such celestial events were portents either of great fortune or impending doom, while others might have shied away from the impact site, fearing ill omens. Gareth saw an opportunity. He dispatched a small party of his most trusted men, brave enough to venture into the supposedly cursed ground to search for any remnants of the fallen star. Their efforts were arduous, wading through thick mud and tangled brush, but after several days they unearthed a small, dense fragment of metallic rock, still warm to the touch, unlike any stone found on Earth. This fragment, dark and heavy, with subtle glints of silver and iron, was Gareth's chosen material. He entrusted it to a reclusive metalsmith, a craftsman rumored to have dealings with alchemists and possess ancient forgotten skills, living in a secluded valley. The smith, accustomed to crafting swords and armor, initially balked at the task. "This stone," he grumbled, holding the fragment, "it defies the hammer, my lord, and shatters the chisel. It is not of this world." Gareth, unwavering, offered a substantial sum and appealed to the smith's pride, challenging him to create something truly unprecedented. After many failed attempts and much experimentation, the smith, using methods whispered to involve intense heat and careful, precise hammering over many days, managed to forge a ring from the meteorite fragment. It was a simple band, unadorned by jewels, yet its surface was a dark, unpolished marvel, showing subtle swirls and patterns that spoke of its cosmic origin, unlike any terrestrial metal. When Gareth presented the ring to Isolde, it was not with a flourish of trumpets or in the presence of an assembled court. Instead, he met her under the vast, star-peppered sky on the castle's highest tower, a place where she often sought solitude. He explained its origin, how it had fallen from the heavens, a piece of the cosmos itself, and how it had been shaped just for her. Isolde gasped, not in polite surprise, but in genuine wonder. She ran her fingers over the cool, rough surface of the ring, a tactile connection to the universe she so admired. The strangeness of this gift, from a medieval perspective, was profound. While precious metals and jewels were the norm for expressions of love, a meteorite fragment was unheard of. It defied the established norms of value and beauty. It was not gold, it was not silver, and it was certainly not an emerald or a ruby. Its worth was not in its earthly rarity, but in its celestial provenance. Furthermore, objects that fell from the sky were often viewed with a mixture of awe and superstitious dread. To willingly seek out and then shape such a thing into a personal adornment, a token of love, was daring. It implicitly defied the common fears of celestial omens, transforming potential bad luck into a symbol of unique, enduring love. It spoke of a love that was grander than mortal concerns, a connection forged under the vastness of the universe. Chroniclers from the period, particularly those interested in natural phenomena, occasionally recorded instances of meteor sightings, but rarely their retrieval or crafting into personal items. The uniqueness of Gareth's gift, its unconventional beauty, and its profound symbolism for Isolde, made it an extraordinarily strange and deeply personal testament to a love that dared to look beyond the earthbound. It was a silent promise of a love that could withstand any earthly trial, a love forged in the fires of the heavens. Number 8. An illuminated manuscript detailing the receiver's ancestral line, including every known misfortune. In the late 12th century, in a world grappling with complex feudal loyalties and the weight of inherited history, Lord Tristan of the Marches found himself hopelessly enamored with Lady Elara of Gwynedd. Their families had a long, interwoven history, marked by both alliances and bitter feuds, stretching back for generations. Elara was fiercely proud of her lineage, yet she also bore the burden of its many tragedies: lost battles, betraying kin, lands seized, and lives cut short by plague or political machinations. Tristan, a man of letters as much as a warrior, sought to prove his devotion not through traditional tokens of wealth or power, but through a profound, almost unsettling acknowledgement of her past in all its glory and sorrow. He wanted to demonstrate that he embraced her entire being, including the shadows that clung to her family's name. Tristan's idea was to commission an illuminated manuscript, a work of art and scholarship, but with a highly unusual focus. Instead of the usual religious texts, books of hours, or romantic chansons, this manuscript would meticulously document Elara's entire ancestral line. This was not entirely strange. Noble families often commissioned genealogies to legitimize their claims to land and power. The bizarre element lay in Tristan's specific instruction to the monks and scribes he hired from a secluded monastery known for its historical records and artistic skill. Commanded them not only to record the triumphs and noble deeds of Elara's forebears, but also to painstakingly detail every known misfortune, every betrayal, every public humiliation, every significant death, and every curse or ill omen that had afflicted her lineage. "Let no sorrow be overlooked," he instructed the chief scribe, "for a family is made not just of its victories, but of its enduring through its trials." The creation of this manuscript was a monumental undertaking. Monks spent months poring over ancient charters, dusty family scrolls, and even local legends cross-referencing information to ensure accuracy. They meticulously recorded details of the Battle of Blackwood, where Elara's great-grandfather was famously betrayed by a supposed ally, leading to a devastating defeat. They documented the plague that swept through the family's lands in the previous century, wiping out entire branches of the tree. They even included whispers of a family curse, a supposed enchantment placed upon one of Elara's distant aunts by a wronged sorceress, which reputedly led to a series of unexplained illnesses. Each entry, both glorious and grim, was accompanied by intricate illuminations. A heroic knight in shining armor might be juxtaposed with a somber illustration of a tomb, or a family crest might be shadowed by a depiction of a burning castle. Pages rich with blues, golds, and reds were also strangely punctuated by images of weeping figures, broken swords, and shrouded bodies. When Tristan presented the enormous leather-bound volume to Elara, she was initially awestruck by its beauty and the sheer effort involved. The weight of the book in her hands was considerable, a physical manifestation of generations. As she turned the vellum pages, her expression shifted from admiration to bewilderment, then to a profound, quiet understanding. Here were the heroic deeds, the alliances, the noble marriages, all beautifully rendered, but also, starkly laid out in precise script and somber art, were the very misfortunes she had heard whispered in the corridors. The tragedies that had shaped her family's identity and often felt like a personal weight. The chronicle of her ancestors' woes, meticulously presented, was not designed to flatter, but to confront. The strangeness of this gift lay in its deliberate embrace of sorrow and misfortune as part of a love offering. In a time when noble gifts aimed to convey prosperity, power, and future happiness, Tristan offered a testament to past suffering. It was an unconventional act of empathy, an acknowledgement that he understood the burdens of her heritage, demonstrating a willingness to share in its shadows, not just its light. It was a deeply personal, almost vulnerable gift. It suggested a love that was not naive or superficial, but one that recognized the complexities of life and history. Though some at court found it morbid or even tactless, wondering why one would wish to immortalize such painful memories, Alara reportedly kept the manuscript close, often consulting its pages. It was, for her, a profound declaration that Tristan loved her not, despite her history, but with her history embracing every thread of her intricate, often tragic, ancestral tapestry. It was a bond formed not just in joy, but in the shared acknowledgement of the past's enduring presence. Number 7. A pair of embroidered gloves, one for each hand of the giver, kept by the receiver. During the height of courtly love traditions in 14th century Aquitaine, where the intricate rituals of romance were as important as military maneuvers, Sir Armand, a knight of considerable reputation but modest means, found himself hopelessly devoted to Lady Isabel, a woman renowned for her wit and her elegant hands. Isabel received many gifts: jewels from wealthy barons, fine silks from merchants, and trained falcons from ambitious squires. Armand, unable to compete with such material grandeur, sought a gift that would distinguish itself through its sheer intimacy and peculiar symbolism. A token that would speak directly to Isabel of his constant, unwavering presence. He wanted to give her something that was deeply personal, almost a part of himself, yet also tangible and enduring. Armand devised a plan that was both simple in its material and profound in its meaning. He had a pair of fine leather gloves, custom-made, of the highest quality suitable for a knight's attire. These were not gloves for Isabel to wear, however. They were for him. He then commissioned a skilled embroiderer, known for her delicate and intricate work, to adorn these gloves. On the right-hand glove she was to stitch a miniature stylized rendition of his own family crest, a silver griffin rampant on a field of azure. On the left-hand glove, she was to embroider Isabel's personal device, a golden lily on a field of emerald green. The embroidery was done with such exquisite detail that it seemed to glow subtly under the light, hinting at the hours of meticulous work that went into it. Once the gloves were complete, Armand wore them for a full month. He wore them during his daily duties, during meals in the hall, and even, some whispered, to bed. He did not wear them into battle, for they were too precious and fine, but every moment outside of combat, they were on his hands, absorbing his presence, his scent, and the subtle warmth of his skin. This ritual was not publicly announced. It was a private act of imbuing the gloves with his essence, a physical connection. When the month was up, a quiet, almost furtive exchange took place. Armand, with a solemn expression, removed the gloves. He then presented them to Isabel, not in a grand ceremony, but during a private moment in the castle gardens, away from prying eyes. "My lady," he said, his voice low, "these are my hands, my strength, my devotion. They are yours to hold as I hold you in my heart." Isabel, puzzled at first, took the gloves. They were supple, clearly, well-worn, and faintly carried the scent of leather, wool, and something uniquely Armand's. The embroidery, vibrant and detailed, told its own silent story. Then Armand explained the meaning. She was not to wear them. Instead, she was to keep them. The right glove, bearing his crest, represented his commitment, his strength, his family name, now intertwined with hers. The left glove, bearing her crest, represented his constant thought of her, his hand always reaching for hers, even when physically apart. It was a tangible piece of him, a constant reminder of his touch, his presence, and his unwavering loyalty. The strangeness of this gift lay in its deliberate incompleteness for the recipient and its peculiar form of intimacy. Instead of a gift for Isabel to use or wear, it was a pair of his gloves, imbued with his daily life, a proxy for his physical presence. It was a highly unusual memento, far removed from the preciousness of jewels or the utility of a fine horse. It was an abstract symbol of possession, a visual and tactile representation of his hands, always working, always thinking of her. It implied a level of longing and a constant desire for physical connection that was both tender and slightly possessive. Furthermore, the fact that they were his worn gloves rather than new ones added a layer of personal essence, a direct transference of his being. Though some gossiped about the peculiarity of the offering, Isabel understood its profound meaning. She kept the gloves in a special velvet-lined box, often taking them out to hold, a silent and constant reminder of Armand's unique devotion, a truly personal testament to an unusual love. Number 6. A vial of the giver's blood. In the mid-13th century, across the stark, windswept landscapes of the Scottish borders, where loyalty was often sealed with blood oaths and feuds ran deep, a fierce love bloomed between young Laird Duncan of the clan MacGregor and Morag, daughter of a rival clan chief, the Campbells. Their love was forbidden, shadowed by generations of enmity and spilled blood. To publicly acknowledge their affection would invite disaster, yet their bond was unbreakable. Duncan, impetuous and deeply passionate, sought a way to demonstrate his absolute, total devotion to Morag, a vow that transcended mere words or conventional tokens. He wanted to give her a piece of himself, a life force, a symbol of a covenant, as ancient and binding as the very land they fought over. Duncan's chosen gift was shockingly direct, a vial of his own blood. This was not a symbolic drop, but a measurable quantity enough to be unmistakably personal and gravely significant. The act itself was fraught with danger and superstition. Blood in medieval times was viewed as the essence of life, the carrier of lineage, and a powerful component in oaths and rituals both sacred and profane. To offer one's blood was an act of profound vulnerability and ultimate trust, a gesture typically reserved for life or death, pacts or sacred communion, never as a romantic token. Duncan performed this act in secret, away from the prying eyes of his clan elders or Morag's suspicious family. He used a small, sharp blade, carefully pricking his vein to draw enough blood to half-fill a tiny glass vial, one he had previously acquired from a wandering apothecary. The vial was then stoppered with beeswax and sealed with his family's wax impression, a tiny, almost invisible crest. He found a way to deliver it to Morag through a trusted, silent intermediary, a loyal kinsman who understood the gravity of the situation and the depth of Duncan's forbidden love. The small, dark phial, nestled in a pouch of rough-spun linen, was slipped into Morag's hand during a clandestine meeting near a secluded stream, a place where their families traditionally met for truce discussions, now repurposed for secret rendezvous. Morag, expecting perhaps a message or a small brooch, felt the unusual weight and rigidness of the phial. When she opened the pouch and saw the dark liquid swirling within the glass, her breath hitched. Her initial reaction was one of shock, perhaps even a flicker of fear. This was not a jewel. It was a part of Duncan, a raw, vital offering. The strangeness of this gift cannot be overstated for its time. While blood pacts existed, they were formal, usually involving a ritualized mixing of blood between parties to seal an alliance or a promise often witnessed. To give a vial of one's own blood as a personal love token was intensely unconventional. It bordered on the macabre, stepping into territory often associated with dark magic, ancient pagan rituals, or extreme religious devotion, not romantic courtship. It was a gesture of absolute commitment, a pledge that went beyond mere words, for blood was life itself. It was a symbol of shared destiny, of a bond that could only be broken by death, a direct challenge to the notion of "till death do us part." It implicitly carried the weight of life and death, an acknowledgement of the potentially fatal consequences of their forbidden love. Historical accounts of specific blood gifts in romance are rare, precisely because such acts were often considered taboo or too private to be recorded. However, contemporary folklore and legal documents occasionally reference blood oaths as binding agreements, providing a framework for understanding the profound symbolism. For Murad, this gift was a stark, undeniable declaration. It was Duncan's life offered to her, a constant, silent reminder of his unyielding loyalty and their desperate connection. It spoke of a love willing to defy all societal norms, even to spill one's own blood to prove its truth. It was a deeply unsettling, yet undeniably powerful, testament to a love that defied the very fabric of their warring world. Number 5. A cloak woven with strands of the giver's own hair. In the late 11th century, in a remote mountainous region of Brittany, where ancient traditions lingered like the morning mist, the Lady Isolde, heiress to a minor but proud noble house, found herself admired by Lord Ronan. Ronan was a chieftain from a neighboring, equally proud but more secluded clan. Their courtship was conducted with the solemnity and earnestness characteristic of the age. Ronan, a man of few words but profound gestures, sought to impress Isolde with a gift that would not just be beautiful or expensive, but would speak to a deep, abiding connection, a gift that would literally be a part of him, wrapping her in his presence. He wanted to provide warmth, comfort, and a constant, tangible reminder of his devotion, woven into the very fabric of her daily life. Ronan conceived of a gift that transcended mere artistry, a cloak woven with strands of his own hair. This was not a casual undertaking. Hair, in medieval beliefs, was highly significant. It was seen as an extension of the self, a repository of strength and identity, often used in charms or curses. To incorporate one's hair into an item meant to be worn by another was an act of extreme intimacy, a literal entanglement of lives. Ronan began by carefully collecting his hair over many months. Each time he cut his hair, whether for practical reasons or simply to maintain its length, he preserved the clippings. He did so meticulously, ensuring the strands were clean and carefully stored. This private, almost ritualistic act spoke volumes of his sustained commitment to the project. Once he had amassed a significant quantity, Ronan entrusted it to a highly skilled weaver known for her exquisite craftsmanship, who lived in a secluded village far from the prying eyes of the court. The weaver, a woman of deep experience and quiet wisdom, initially found the request unusual, but she understood the profound symbolism. She carefully incorporated the dark, coarse strands of Ronan's hair into the warp and weft of a rich, deep forest green wool, ensuring that the hair was subtly integrated, almost invisible to the casual glance, yet undeniably present. The process was painstaking, requiring immense patience and delicate handling, for the hair was fine and prone to breakage. The resulting cloak was heavy and warm, its green hue reminiscent of the ancient forests Ronan cherished, and subtly imbued with his essence. It was not merely a garment, it was a living textile, woven from his very being. When Ronan presented the cloak to Isolde, it was done with quiet reverence. He draped it over her shoulders himself, and as she wrapped herself in its warmth, a faint familiar scent of him, of leather and forests, seemed to emanate from the garment. He then explained its true nature, how it contained parts of him, literally woven into its very being. Isolde, a woman steeped in the traditional beliefs of her land, understood the profound implications. She knew the significance of hair, not just as a physical attribute, but as a connection to a person's spirit and vitality. The strangeness of this gift was manifold. Firstly, it was an intimate act that verged on the superstitious. While locks of hair were sometimes exchanged as tokens of affection, to weave significant quantities of one's hair into a garment was an unprecedented level of commitment and a physical intermingling of identities. It went beyond mere symbolism. It was a literal embodiment of the giver within the gift. Secondly, it was a subtle, almost secret strangeness. On the surface, it was a beautiful, well-crafted cloak, but beneath the surface, for those who knew its secret, it carried a powerful, almost talismanic quality, a constant, subtle reminder of Ronan's presence, his literal self wrapped around her. It was a tangible connection, a warm embrace, a protective shield, all imbued with his personal essence. Records from the period, particularly from rural chroniclers, sometimes mention strange customs related to hair, but this particular act of integration into a garment as a love token was truly unique. Isolde reportedly wore the cloak, often, especially during long, cold evenings, finding not just warmth, but a profound sense of connection and protection in its unusual composition. It was a constant, silent testament to a love woven with every fiber of his being. Number 4. A hand-carved coffin, miniature. In the mid-15th century, as the medieval period was drawing to a close and the shadows of the Renaissance were beginning to emerge, society was still deeply preoccupied with mortality. The Black Death had left an indelible mark on the collective consciousness, and the concept of memento mori, remember you must die, permeated art, literature, and even everyday life. It was within this context that Lord Aethelred, a nobleman known for his melancholic disposition and profound artistic sensibility, found himself deeply devoted to Lady Eleanor, a woman whose beauty was matched only by her own introspective nature and quiet appreciation. Aethelred, wanting to express a love that transcended earthly existence and pledged eternal devotion, sought a gift that would embody the solemn yet deeply romantic sentiment. Aethelred commissioned a local artisan, a craftsman renowned for his intricate wood carving and morbid fascinations, to create a miniature coffin. This was not a toy or a simple trinket. It was a meticulously crafted replica, rendered in dark polished ebony, complete with tiny, perfectly formed brass handles and hinges. Its lid was designed to open, revealing a velvet-lined interior as if awaiting a tiny occupant. The artisan spent weeks on the piece, carving minute details into the wood. A delicate rose on one side, a subtly etched skull on the other, intertwining themes of life and death, beauty and decay. It was a work of art, unsettling in its subject matter, yet undeniably exquisite in its execution. The material ebony itself was significant, often associated with mystery, power, and the depths of the earth. The purpose of this unusual gift was not to frighten or to convey ill will. On the contrary, it was meant to be a profound declaration of undying love, a pledge to be together even beyond the grave. In an era where betrothal often involved a promise of eternal fidelity, this gift pushed the boundaries of such vows into the realm of the tangible and the macabre. Aethelred presented the miniature coffin to Eleanor during a quiet, private moment in her chambers, a room often filled with her own collection of curiosities and rare books. He opened the lid to reveal the soft, velvet lining, explaining that it was a symbol of their bond, a testament to a love that would endure till the end of all things and beyond. He did not offer a ring to be placed inside, but rather suggested that it was a place where their shared memories, or perhaps a small lock of her hair, could reside, a silent vault for their eternal connection. The strangeness of this gift is undeniable to a modern sensibility, and even in the medieval period, it would have raised eyebrows. While memento mori was a common theme, incorporating it so directly into a love token, especially in the form of a coffin, was highly unusual. Gifts of love were typically meant to symbolize life, fertility, prosperity, and joy. A miniature coffin, however beautifully crafted, was a stark reminder of death, a boundary that love was traditionally understood to defy in a more ethereal spiritual sense rather than a tangible morbid one. It was a bold and unsettling statement, a literal embrace of the finality of human existence within the context of a romantic bond. It suggested a love that was profound enough to stare death in the face and still declare its enduring nature. Records from the period do not typically document gifts of miniature coffins between lovers, highlighting its extreme rarity and peculiarity. However, the prevalence of death-related imagery in general art and literature confirms the cultural context that made such a gift, while strange, not entirely alien in its core concept of mortality. For Eleanor, the gift was a testament to Aethelred's deep understanding of her own reflective nature and his courage to express love in such an unconventional, almost defiant way. She reportedly kept the miniature coffin on her bedside table, a constant, silent pledge of a love that recognized its own finite nature on earth, yet yearned for an eternal continuation in the afterlife, a love that was both beautiful and profoundly morbidly real. Number 3. A living caged raven, trained to whisper secrets. In the wild, untamed marches of the late 12th century, where castles stood sentinel against encroaching wilderness and ancient superstitions held sway, the young Lord Rhys, a solitary and often brooding man, found himself drawn to Lady Isolde, the ice-spirited woman from a neighboring, equally isolated stronghold. Their territories were separated by dense forests and treacherous bogs, making frequent personal meetings difficult. Rhys, a man deeply attuned to the rhythms of nature and the hidden lore of his ancestors, sought a messenger that would embody his unique affection and facilitate clandestine communication, a creature that was both a gift and a confidant. He wanted a gift that was alive, intelligent, and capable of carrying the weight of his whispered affections across the miles. Rhys chose a raven, a bird long associated with mystery, prophecy, and sometimes ill omen in Celtic folklore. This was not a choice made lightly. Ravens were regarded with a mixture of awe and fear, but Rhys, having spent his youth studying the habits of the wild, believed in the raven's intelligence and its capacity for mimicry. He captured a young raven and over many months undertook the arduous task of taming and training it. This was no ordinary training. Rhys aimed for something far more sophisticated than simple perching or flying to a hand. He painstakingly taught the raven to mimic specific short phrases and whispered words, particularly those that were too intimate or too sensitive to commit to written parchment. He would spend hours in his secluded tower chamber, repeating phrases, rewarding the bird, slowly shaping its guttural calls into recognizable words. Training was a secret endeavor, known only to Rhys himself. He would practice phrases of endearment, coded messages, and fragments of poems, listening intently as the raven struggled, then mastered the mimicry. The goal was for the raven to deliver these whispered messages directly to Isolde, bypassing the usual dangers of intercepted letters or gossiping messengers. The raven, named Corvus by Rhys, became a peculiar extension of his thoughts, a winged confidant carrying not written words but auditory secrets. When the time came for the presentation, Rhys sent Corvus on its inaugural flight to Isolde's castle, not with a flourish, but with a silent prayer that the bird would complete its unusual task. Corvus arrived at Isolde's window, its dark eyes intelligent and its demeanor surprisingly calm. Isolde, recognizing the raven as a creature of Rhys's lands, was intrigued. As she approached the bird, it cocked its head and, to her utter astonishment, began to softly, clearly utter a whispered phrase, "My heart yearns." Then, after a pause, another, "For your light," and then a coded message about a future meeting point. The strangeness of this gift was truly remarkable. Firstly, a raven was an incredibly unconventional choice for a romantic gift. Unlike the majestic falcon, a symbol of nobility and sport, the raven was often associated with death, battlefields, or solitary wisdom. To give one as a token of affection was highly peculiar. Secondly, the specific training for whispering secrets transformed the bird from a mere pet into a living, breathing, and incredibly discreet messenger of love. Circumvented the written word, making the communication intimate, immediate, and nearly impossible to intercept without catching the bird itself. Historical records, while full of references to messenger pigeons, rarely mention ravens trained for such intimate communication. Such a gift speaks to a deep need for secrecy and a profound trust in an animal's capacity for discretion. It was a tangible manifestation of a love that was both wild and cunning, mirroring the untamed spirit of the borderlands themselves. For Isolde Corvus became a source of both wonder and comfort. Each arrival of the raven brought a moment of intense whispered connection, a direct link to Rise's thoughts and feelings, delivered by an unexpected and incredibly strange avian confidant. It was a living secret, a testament to a love that found its own unique and hidden ways to endure across the distances. Number 2. A tress of hair from a deceased saint. In the waning years of the 13th century, a time saturated with fervent religious devotion and an almost obsessive reverence for relics, the Lady Eleanor, a devout and pious noblewoman, found herself the object of affection of Lord Hugo of Vermand. Hugo was a man of immense wealth and influence, but he also possessed a peculiar brand of piety, often bordering on the extreme. He wished to give Eleanor a gift that would not only symbolize his profound love for her, but also affirm his understanding of her deep faith and his willingness to go to extraordinary lengths to secure her spiritual well-being and favor. He knew that for Eleanor, true value lay not in earthly riches, but in heavenly grace. Hugo's chosen gift was a relic of immense spiritual significance, a tress of hair purportedly from Saint Agnes of Rome, a virgin martyr revered for her purity and unwavering faith. The acquisition of such a relic was a complex and ethically ambiguous undertaking in medieval Europe. Relics, especially first-class relics like parts of a saint's body, were considered sacred objects, repositories of divine grace and miraculous power. They were highly coveted by churches, monasteries, and wealthy patrons, and their trade was often rife with fraud and clandestine dealings. To obtain a tress of hair from a saint, particularly one as renowned as Saint Agnes, would have required significant resources, connections within the church, and perhaps even a degree of cunning or illicit negotiation. It was certainly not an item one simply purchased openly in a marketplace. Hugo reportedly spent months, perhaps even years, pursuing this particular relic. He leveraged his vast network of contacts, bribed minor clerics, and navigated the murky world of relic dealers, ensuring that the tress he sought was authenticated, or at least credibly claimed to be genuine. The small, fragile strands of hair were carefully preserved in a tiny, ornate golden reliquary, a small casket often adorned with jewels and intricate filigree, designed to protect and display such sacred objects. This reliquary itself was a work of art, befitting the sanctity of its contents. The very act of obtaining and encasing such a relic meant that it was an object of extreme rarity and value, not just monetarily, but spiritually. When Hugo presented the reliquary to Eleanor, it was not with the casual air of a romantic gesture. It was a solemn, almost ritualistic moment. He explained the arduous journey to obtain it the profound spiritual significance of Saint Agnes and how he believed this relic would offer her protection, grace, and a constant connection to the divine. Eleanor, upon understanding the nature of the gift, was overwhelmed. For her, it was not merely a symbol of Hugo's love, but a tangible link to holiness, a piece of heaven brought to her earthly realm. It was a testament to his understanding of her deepest spiritual needs and his boundless devotion. The strangeness of this gift, from a contemporary perspective, is rooted in the almost obsessive veneration of relics, which can seem morbid or superstitious. For medieval sensibilities, however, the strangeness lay more in its audaciousness and its particular context as a romantic gift. While nobles often made donations to churches in honor of loved ones or commissioned religious art, to give a piece of a saint's body directly as a love token was highly unusual. It blurred the lines between sacred devotion and secular affection, elevating the beloved to an almost saintly status worthy of such a profound and holy offering. It suggested a love so powerful it sought to intertwine itself with the divine, using a sacred object as a conduit for romantic intent. Records from major ecclesiastical centers documented the acquisition and display of relics, but rarely were they directly gifted as personal tokens between lovers in this manner. It was a gesture that spoke of immense spiritual ambition, combined with romantic ardor, placing Eleanor's spiritual welfare at the very core of his declaration of love, a truly peculiar fusion of the sacred and the profane. Number 1. A lover's tooth, encased in gold. In the heart of the 14th century, a period often characterized by its stark contradictions, profound faith alongside brutal warfare, exquisite art alongside wide prédits, the young lady Genevieve, renowned for her beauty and her unwavering loyalty, found herself adored by Lord Gaston, a knight celebrated for his strength and his peculiar, almost obsessive, devotion. Gaston, not content with the conventional expressions of love, sought a gift that would transcend the fleeting and the material, something that would be an undeniable part of himself, a literal fragment of his being, offered as an eternal pledge. He wanted a token that would be as permanent and as deeply personal as the very bones in his body. Gaston's chosen gift was a molar, one of his own teeth, carefully extracted and then meticulously encased in a delicate, hand-wrought gold setting, transforming it into a pendant. The act of extracting a tooth in medieval times was not a trivial matter. Dentistry was primitive, often painful, and frequently resulted in infection. To willingly undergo such an ordeal, purely for the purpose of a romantic gesture, spoke volumes of Gaston's extreme commitment. He did not lose the tooth through natural means. He chose to have it removed, perhaps under the influence of rudimentary sedatives, but certainly with conscious intent and enduring discomfort. The tooth itself, once extracted, would have been cleaned, carefully polished, and then given to a skilled goldsmith. This artisan, more accustomed to setting precious gems, was tasked with creating a bespoke setting for this most unusual jewel. The goldwork was intricate, designed to both hold and display the tooth, turning a mundane and frankly somewhat grotesque biological fragment into an object of strange beauty. The gold would have been chosen for its enduring quality, its resistance to tarnish, symbolizing the eternal nature of his love. When Gaston presented the gold-encased tooth to Genevieve, it was done in a quiet, intimate setting, away from the judgmental eyes of the court. He offered it not as a macabre curiosity, but as a profound symbol of his devotion, explaining how it was a piece of his very essence, a part of his body that he had willingly given to her, a tangible representation of his unbreakable bond. Genevieve, initially taken aback by the sheer peculiarity of the offering, slowly came to understand the immense, almost shocking sacrifice it represented. It was a piece of him, literally, that he had endured pain to give. The strangeness of this gift is paramount, even by medieval standards. While relics of saints often included teeth, They were venerated for their divine connection, not their human origin from a living lover. For a common individual to offer a piece of their own body, particularly a tooth as a love token, was deeply unconventional and arguably unsettling, pushed the boundaries of intimacy into a realm that bordered on the bizarre and the macabre. It was an intensely physical declaration, a literal piece of Gaston's living self given to Genevieve. It spoke of a love that was willing to endure pain, to physically diminish oneself, to prove its depth and permanence. It was a pledge of possession and belonging that went beyond metaphor. It was a tangible fragment of his physical being, now belonging to her. Chroniclers and poets of the medieval era, while often detailing grand feasts and heroic deeds, rarely if ever recorded such intensely personal and peculiar gestures of love, precisely because they were so outside the norm. This speaks to its rarity and its singular nature. For Genevieve, the tooth became a potent, silent testament to Gaston's extraordinary, almost terrifying devotion. She reportedly wore it close to her heart, beneath her gowns, a secret and deeply personal symbol of a love that had defied conventional beauty and comfort, to proclaim its enduring and undeniably strange. It was a constant, tangible reminder of the profound and perhaps unsettling lengths to which Gaston was willing to go to demonstrate his love. A love as enduring and unique as the gold that held his very being.